Good morning, everyone, or good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Anna-Marie Lombard here, Century Intelligence CEO and founder, and very chuffed this morning to be talking to Lezanne Fieuw. She's one of our associates, and I would love to introduce her to you and the great work that they are doing. Just a little bit why we've got a group of associates working. When I started Century Intelligence years ago, I actually stepped into helping individuals to understand themselves, to use their sensory matrix, to see how their threshold impact their day-to-day productivity, their relationships, and their well-being. And obviously that grew, and there were too many individuals to be working with, and I started to focus more on group work and training teams, which then led to equipping, empowering, and educating a group of really great professionals, and they are working in association with us, having done our 3-day extensive Century Intelligence course, and they apply our principles and our tools with the practices or the kind of clients that they are seeing. So Lezanne, thanks for having you here. Can you just share a little bit of what is the kind of work that you are doing?
Thanks, Anna-Marie. It's wonderful to talk to you today. So I'm an occupational therapist. I've got my own private practice, and we focus on vocational rehabilitation, so trying to get folks back to work after injury or illness. We do a lot of work in the insurance sector, where we do assessments to determine whether someone can still work or not, and what kind of rehabilitation is needed to help the person go back to work. And we also get referrals from private clients, doctors, employers also want to look at what kind of accommodations is needed in the workplace. So everything really focused on helping people go back to work. We see clients with physical conditions, but also mental health conditions, and the practice has been really moving in that direction in the past few years.
Okay,
so that's really in a nutshell.
That's the move that you say into more of a mental health direction. Could you elaborate a little bit more? What necessitated that particular move, or to change your focus a little bit? Can you share more of that?
Yes, I think there is definitely an increase in individuals with depression and anxiety. We see that globally. So there is a bigger demand for occupational therapists, I think, in general, to focus on delivering that sort of service. And myself and my colleague at the practice, we both enjoy working in that field, and we feel that we've got skills that can really help individuals. So we resonate with that kind of work. So I think it comes naturally for us. And it's really a field that we're interested in.
And Lezanne, I'm going to throw a question to you now, which we haven't really prepared before, but just because I think for people to understand mental health in a little bit from, I think, an occupational therapist view, when would someone see an occupational therapist for mental health problems, and for what reason? And when would they see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and for what reason? So maybe can you clarify that a little bit?
Yes, I think that's a good question. I often get that question also this week, actually, from a colleague in another profession. So I think it's important to work in a team, and we work in a team. So it's not only that the person will be seeing one professional. The psychiatrist is there to make the diagnosis and assist with providing medication. So that is really the focus of the psychiatrist. And the psychologist helps with looking at what are background information that probably had an impact on the development of the mental health condition. So delving a little bit more in the person's history, upbringing, childhood, etc. So a lot of talking therapy. Whereas the occupational therapist, we link onto that, but we've got a more practical approach. So we try to make gains with regards to practical things in the person's life. So looking at routine, coping strategies, what kind of things actually need to be done, on a day-to-day basis to help the person function more optimally. So often we work very closely with the psychologist, and it's actually really important that what we do and what the psychologists do, that it goes hand in hand, and that we use the same language and the same sort of therapeutic style. So, but both of those. So we've got a more, I think, a practical approach.
That's brilliant. And I love the multidisciplinary approach, because I think by having to manage anyone with a mental health condition, or even at risk for a mental health condition, I think, there's so many facets that need to be addressed. And for instance, just yesterday, we did our wellness online workshop, which actually went very, very well. And just to tie onto that, we've got a great focus on bottom-up self-regulation. And from a sensory intelligence point of view, we use sensory strategies or sensory-based actions on how to curb stress and anxiety. And I think that's a key difference. With us using a bottom-up approach, it's always action and solution focus orientated. It's what can you do on a day-to-day basis. Where typically psychology work from a top down. In other words, there's a lot of talking and thinking and processing. So it's actually great complementing therapies that we are combining, but we do have a very different approach. And the one thing that I strongly feel about what occupational therapists do well, we're very holistic and we look at each facet of the person, and then we actually make very practical gains.
What I can also say is that what I find is that the two do go hand in hand. And I actually spoke to a client yesterday where I mentioned if you are really feeling anxious and stressed, often the cognitive approaches don't work so well. You end up overthinking, and then it is really helpful to do that bottom up strategy where you're using the body, and that then has a positive impact on the mind and the brain. Exactly. and your thoughts.
Exactly. And I think to also elaborate on that, there's a very strong neuroscience link to understand how the brain actually works with managing stress, because the thinking part is actually the brain need to utilize the prefrontal cortex to move down into the lower sections of the brain where the activation of stress starts. But then if we look at a bottom-up approach, we actually work through the body, which enters right at the bottom of the spinal cord. So the literally neuroscience pathway of using bottom-up sensory action-based strategies reach the stress centers in the brain much faster, because that loop, that real pathway loop, is slower, as shorter as opposed to prefrontal to that. So, and we also find if people are highly anxious or stressed, their brain basically goes into a hijacking state. I always say the primitive brain hijacks. Yeah, so it freeze or flight. The autonomic nervous system response is there, where your brain just go into, you don't know what to do. And then thinking really is really, really difficult. So yeah, thanks for that. So that's great feedback. Yeah, sorry, we didn't prepare that, but I was thinking about that. I think the clarity about that is important, but working together as a team is ultimately important. So we love and we support all of our multidisciplinary team members, and we cross-refer and we work very closely together, because it's always to the benefit of our clients and the people that we are helping. So that's really important. Just quickly, why do you wanted to have an association with sensory intelligence? So just briefly, your interest. So share that a little bit with me. So I think that would be great to get that across as well. How do you see that benefiting your practice? Because that's the whole idea. The work that we do, we want to empower other people to use it to benefit their clients. Because I think particularly from a mental health perspective, there's so much need out there. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to answer your question, so tell me.
Yes, I can maybe just share a bit personally as well. So I obviously became familiar with your work after my studies, and read the book, and it had a big impact on me personally. And so I was able to understand myself better and incorporate some of the strategies in my own life. So I think that is really where it started, and I feel it fits really well with my therapeutic approach. So in my practice, we try to give people skills and practical tools. We believe in empowering people, giving them knowledge, helping them to understand themselves better, and so that there's that more self-insight and self-awareness. I think that is really critical. And then from there, start looking at what are some of the practical approaches, practical things that they can do on a day-to-day basis. So even this week, I saw 2 clients with whom I did the matrix, people in high earning, high stressful, high demand corporate jobs, and both of them reported that they found the matrix to be spot on in terms of how they are as a person. And I could see in the session it just creates more self-awareness, and now we can go and look in a bit more detail what are some of the things that actually stand out to them in terms of the practical strategies, and how can we sort of develop an action plan, things that they want to start incorporating in their life. So I find somewhere in the therapeutic process, it's a valuable tool to add to all the other tools that we're using, to help individuals thrive and really, reach their full potential. So I find it's very, very useful.
Okay, great stuff. I also had feedback from a client a while back. They were going through a massive change process before COVID-19, where there were lots of retrenchments and they had to really change the whole business model. And I was involved in one of the leadership cohesive sessions where we just pulled together, and the HR manager looked at the matrix and she said, this is easy for people to do. You don't have to think too hard about it. So it's like, drink more water from a water bottle, and why is it important, and how scientifically based it is. So that's great feedback to have. So I really appreciate the use with that, and again, it forms part of your therapeutic toolbox. So it's great that you tap into that whenever you need it for your particular client. Just one last thing before we close down. You also mentioned a lot of burnout. So obviously, I think before COVID-19, there's also been a lot of burnout. Have you been seeing that trend?
Yes, no, definitely, and I think we'll probably see an increase. Also now with people's routine and structure have really been disrupted. So where previously they had maybe a set routine, now it's been disrupted, and people can work longer hours, maybe not have as much support as before. So I think that's definitely something to be on the lookout for, because I think we will see an increase in just mental health cases as well.
Definitely. And I've also been watching all of the trends that's coming out there and all the publications. There is most certainly a big increase in mental health conditions. People are uncertain, they are anxious, they're feeling overwhelmed. I mean, all of us to a certain extent do that. So whatever we can do to support anyone, I mean, I think, and our profession is a very compassion-based, supportive-based type of professional ethics that we use. So I always give more, and I always, the therapist in me, even though I don't really are doing day-to-day one-to-one therapy, I think the therapist in me always surfaces in order to help people. So so just by closing off, Lezanne, what is the one thing that you've learned from lockdown that you could share with the people watching the video?
I think it's been such an interesting time. I've learned to have a bit more grace with myself, be kind to myself. I think that would be definitely a take-home message, and I try to use that as a affirmation during the day. And regular exercise, I definitely think that's something that's it's keeping me going, and I try to at some point limit screen time and do exercise, and I find that that's definitely helping. It's such a simple tip, but it definitely works for me at this point.
I love that. So there's actually two approaches. They're giving yourself some grace, and it's okay to not be okay. That's in the thinking brain. That's the top-down self-regulation, what we call. But then being active and doing exercise is bottom-up. Actually making your body move is a bottom-up sensory self-regulation strategy. So it is critical for us to keep us going. I'm struggling with that one myself, sitting way too much, moving way too little. And I'm not a routine kind of a girl. I don't like routine. So I'm really struggling with that. I'm loving the family time from lockdown. I've got my first year varsity oldest son is now at home, and he branched out into varsity this year, and he loved Stellenbosch and being with all the youngsters. So we never saw him. So I've got my son back for a little bit, which is great. And then also having my youngest son here. So we do a lot of quality time. We eat around the table every night. We cook together. We chat. We listen to music. So I think lockdown has definitely for us provided quality family time. And then I think the birds are also loving lockdown.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
The amount of bird life, and I even had a squirrel in my garden the other day. So
Wow.
that's awesome, awesome to see.
Wow.
But Lezanne,
Yeah.
thanks so much for sharing with me. I really do appreciate that. Guys, check below. We will have Lezanne's practice link for you there. Please contact her. They're a great group, and we're just very chuffed to be associated with them. I'll also put our shop down in the link. We are running some online workshops. We've actually done, I just shared with Lezanne, I think up to now, we've done 13 online workshops. So lockdown kept us very busy and we very quickly adapted to the new norm. So we'll have to just do the connection online, and you're very welcome to join some of our workshops. We will be running them regularly going forward. So thanks for your time, guys. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and make sure that your mental health is really important. We've got a saying to say, if you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? So take care and be good. Thank you, Lezanne.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.